really there needs to be education. And that's the first step in treating the symptoms to a problem. We got to go to the root of the problem. We got to uproot that root, because otherwise the tree will just keep producing bad fruit and good fruit, and we don't want to trim it anymore, in other words. But I wanted to say that, as a Christian, you should be concerned with crisis management and worldwide communism, worldwide dictatorship run under a crisis by way of crisis management. We know Karl Marx and many other people have discussed the crisis emergency management under a national security state. Nothing can be investigated. Nothing is taken a look at. We're just profile policed, and according to the standards that these international monetary funds and the international bankers and Federal Reserve decree and declare over us. But many of you don't know, because it's never been taught to you in school, that the US government went bankrupt in 1933. Welcome to the New World Order. And it's no longer a republic. It's just the facts, the laws that have been passed, the things that have been done. It's just, we're way beyond, the right and the left. That's just two wings on the same bird. But United States congressional records shows that in March 17th, 1993, volume number 33, page H 1303, for any of you that want to go look it up, the speaker is Senator James Traficant Jr. from Ohio addressing the House. So, Mr. Speaker, he says, quote unquote, "We are now here in Chapter 11, members of Congress and official trustees presiding over the greatest reorganization of any bankrupt entity in world history, the U.S. government. And we are setting forth, hopefully, a blueprint for our future. There are some who say it is a coroner's report that will lead to our demise," unquote. So it's an established fact, guys, that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March 9th, 1933, 48 Statute 1, Public Law 89-719, go look it up. Declared by President Roosevelt, being bankrupt and insolvent, and many of you in finance understand what that means. HJR 192, 73rd Congress in session, June 5th, 1933, joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause dissolved the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of the United States governmental offices. So officers and departments, and really is just further evidence that, the United States federal government exists today in name only, de facto only. But the population, the regular citizen, has no idea what crisis management is. They have no idea that there's this historical precedent for these things being done in communist countries. And that's why we talk about the gangstalking, the community-based policing, and this cause stalking that you commonly see in communist countries, deputizing the civilians in regular clothes and in plain clothes, organized and coordinated revolutionaries to bring about the destabilizing, to bring in the New World Order. So it's an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March 9th, 1933. Like I said, 48 Statute 1, Public Law 89-719, declared by the president at the time, President Roosevelt, being bankrupt and insolvent, HJR 192, 73rd Congress in session, June 5th, 1933. So joint resolution was to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, and it dissolved the United States. So the receivers of the United States bankruptcy, which is really, what we say corporate receivership. So this corporation comes in to manage the bankruptcy and manage the debt that our government borrowed, without the citizens being aware. So these are the international bankers via the United Nations and the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, and all United States offices, officials, and departments are now operating, like I said, in a de facto status in name only under Emergency Wartime Powers Act and under PDD 51. Go look it up, what PDD 51 is. An executive order rule under the crisis. So our rights are suspended as long as there's an emergency. They don't have to say anything that they're doing behind closed doors. They just claim national security. What a perfect excuse to rule in our country as a dictatorship under executive orders where the president just calls the shots. So that's a dictatorship under the crisis. So with the constitutional Republican form of government now dissolved, the receivers of the bankruptcy have adopted this new form of government under emergency rule for the United States. And nobody wants to acknowledge that. Everybody wants to just go on like everything's normal and the same as it's always been. We haven't skipped a beat, right? Just keep going out and pretending like voting matters, that it even is counted. You think these mega corporations are going to give the people, the right to choose? No, these presidents are appointed and they are two wings on the same bird, as we well know, any of us who are awake. This new form of government is known as a democracy, right? Majority rules, right? That's mob rule. That's not a republic, a limited democracy with checks and balances as our country was established. But many of you who are part of, joining the military and everything else, you don't know this. You don't know this. Well, you should know this. So it's right now we are under this established socialist communist order under a new governor for America. And really it's FEMA and Homeland Security that run the country and train the local sheriff's office that freedom is terror, that war is peace, and that if you have rights, you're suspicious. So this act was instituted and established by transferring and or placing the office of Secretary of Treasury to that of the Governor of the International Monetary Fund, and under that heading. So Public Law 94-564, page 8, section HR 13955 reads in part, the U.S. Secretary of Treasury receives no compensation for representing the United States. That's insolvent, folks. That's bankrupt, folks. And we never got out of the bankruptcy, did we? So people just want to act as nothing has changed and the United States is free when we are, leading the world in prison population. You know what I mean? More people are in prison for nonviolent crimes in the United States than anywhere else in the world. So the United States Congressional Record, May 4th, 1992, page H, 2891, Senator and Chairman of the House of Representatives, Committee on Banking, Finance and Urban Affairs, Senator Henry Gonzalez of Texas, speaking on national and international thievery in high places, and said, we are bankrupt. So we are insolvent on every level of our national life, whether it is corporate, whether it is just plain you and I out there with the life of debt that we have all piled up, private debt, credit cards and whatnot, or whether it is the government. We are insolvent, we are bankrupt and have no ability to pay back that debt that the government borrowed in our name, pledging you and me as collateral against that debt. And that's what all this is about. Their domination, their ownership of not only the infrastructure of the United States, but the people that were pledged as collateral. So we are insolvent. How long will it take before the nasty megatruth is conveyed? Because we are being experimented on by these laws and the system in place that's a worldwide dictatorship, starting with the United States, driving worldwide communism as the goal. And we are seeing all these laws that have been passed over the years, like NDAA, the violation of posse comitatus, which militarizes the local state police. And we are seeing people be persecuted that are Christians worldwide like never before. So the United States Congressional Record, January 19th, 1976, page 240, Majority S. Hold of Maryland. Mr. Speaker, many of us recently received a letter from World Affairs Council of Philadelphia inviting members of Congress to participate in a ceremonial signing of the Declaration of Independence on January 30th in Congress Hall, adjacent to Independence Hall in Philadelphia. And a number of members of Congress have been invited to sign this document, lending their prestige to its theme. But I want the record to show my strong opposition to this declaration. It calls for the surrender of national sovereignty to international organizations. It declares that our economy should be regulated by international authorities. It proposes that we enter a new world order, quote unquote. That's the Illuminati rule, not right or left, but the Illuminati. So that which would want to redistribute the wealth centered and on focus with the American people and created by the American people. Mr. Speaker, this is an obscenity that defies the Declaration of Independence signed 200 years ago in Philadelphia. We fought a great revolution for independence and individual liberty, but now it is proposed that we participate in a world socialist order. And we are proud and a free people, or are we just carcasses to be picked by the jackals, of the world who want to destroy us? So when one cuts through a high-flown rhetoric of this Declaration of Independence, one finds key phrases that tell a story. For example, it states that the economy of all nations is a seamless web, and that no one nation can any longer effectively maintain its processes of production and monetary systems without recognizing the necessity for collaborative regulation by international authorities. And how do you like the idea of international authorities, quote unquote, controlling our production and our monetary system, Mr. Speaker? How could any American dedicated to our national independence and freedom tolerate such an idea? America should never subject her fate to the decisions by such an assembly, unless we long for national suicide. Instead, let us have independence and freedom. If we surrender our independence to a new world order and don't even know what it is, we will be betraying our historic ideals of freedom and self-government. Freedom of self-government, which is, not outdated, even though that's part of the propaganda that it's, the Constitution is archaic and ancient and does not equip us for our modern times, which is ridiculous propaganda. The fathers of our republic fought a revolution for these ideals that never fade, they never go away, and stand the test of time. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, which are as valid today as they ever were. So let us not betray freedom by embracing slave masters. Let us know who the slave masters are, and let us not betray self-government with world government. Let us celebrate Jefferson and Madison, not Marx and Lenin, guys. So a dollar is a measure of weight defined by the Coinage Act of 1792 and 1900, which is still in force today. A dollar specifies a certain quantity, okay? And it's like 24.8 grains of gold and 371.25 grains of silver in Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. Dollar, quote unquote, the money unit employed in the United States of the value of 100 cents or any combination of coins totaling 100 cents or cent. A coin of the United States, the least in value of those now minted, it is the 100th part of a dollar, you see. So gold and silver were such a powerful money during the founding of the United States of America that the founding fathers declared that only gold and silver coins can be money in America. So since gold and silver coinage were heavy and inconvenient for a lot of transactions, they were stored in banks, and you know the history. And a claim check was issued as money substitute. People traded their coupons as money or currency. Currency is not money, but money substitutes. Redeemable currency must promise to pay a dollar equivalent in gold or silver money, but it's not backed up, as you guys well know. The Federal Reserve notes make no such promises and are not money, but a Federal Reserve note is a debt obligation of the federal United States government, not us. And it's not money. The federal United States government and the U.S. Congress were not and have never been authorized by the Constitution of the United States of America to issue currency of any kind, but only lawful money, gold and silver coin. So it's essential that we comprehend the distinction between real money and paper money substitute. One cannot get rich by accumulating money substitutes, guys. One can only get deeper into debt. We the people no longer have any quote-unquote money. Most Americans have not been paid any quote-unquote money for a very long time, and perhaps not even in their entire lifetime, and are ignorant of this fact. Now, do you comprehend why you feel broke now? So do you understand why you are bankrupt, quote unquote, along with the rest of the country? So really, I wanted to just cover this morning. It's very vital and necessary to understand as an intro into community-based policing and harassment and gangstalking or cause stalking, which is a form of communist-based policing, where family, friends, and the community get involved in your destruction and neutralization, or you are just radicalized because there's so many fun toys that the New World Order has and wants to use on the general public. So we know that, and we know that under PDD 51 and the Emergency Wartime Powers Act, all rights are suspended as it says.